Hey, 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 beautiful people. It is April the 17th, 2013 at 10:06 in the morning. Um, these have been a very interesting past few days. Uh, to watch what's going on globally and to feel the energies as so many of us are being called to go do these little ceremonies and our part in raising the frequency and of Mother Earth and helping to activate her at her little specific spots, just like we did at the crystal beds here in Florida a few weeks ago with Ginger and I. Those vibrations increasing are just really amazing, and it's held strong here in Crystal River, Florida. Crystal beds indeed were activated, and we had a CME since my last video, which it was almost like the frequencies hit a harmonic that is within the crystal beds, and they rang like a guitar string, or like if you've ever seen anybody play a crystal wine glass or a crystal bowl, just when you're rubbing the top of it, it creates a harmonic or a vibration that is a beautiful sound. And sometimes we can't hear those harmonics or frequencies, but we can certainly feel them. And that's what occurred after the CME hit and twanged the crystal beds here in Crystal River. And I watched Sandra Walters getting called to do the same thing on the other side of the United States. I'm on the southeastern corner of the America's Crystal Grid right here. And anyway, at the same time those frequencies are increasing, we're going through a whole lot more clearing with humanity, and watching as they're going through their awakening process. Since my last video, we've also had several days, about 2 or 3 days, of very intense lower vibrational energies that many of us that are attuned to it are feeling. And it's such a contrast for me to experience, to feel the highs of the frequencies that I feel personally, that because of my light body expansion and initiations, as well as that which I'm feeling from the crystal beds as we did the activation there, and then it's increased with the CME that seemed to have hit this area and affected this area more than other places on the planet. I had actually made a post about that CME hitting and what I was feeling, and other persons near here felt the same things, while other people that were away from here felt it as a very weak CME. So it's interesting to see the various reports coming back in about just that. I think these crystal beds are for the awakening of the people here in this particular area, and that's part of why this is the southeastern corner of the North American crystal bed structure. And so, or cred, or whatever you want to call it. It's been very interesting to watch just before those Boston bombings the other day, how you could feel that opposite polarity at the same time occurring. There was a lot of lower vibrations. Many persons were saying we're being harped with lower frequencies, and that is a very definite possibility. That's the capability of HARP, and also with televisions and radios and things that people listen to, and all their communications, internet. The resonant frequencies that individuals hold are in a certain frequency range, and those frequencies can be manipulated, and they're just like, to create an earthquake you have to hit the same resonant frequency as Earth that is in the place where the earthquake is generated. to create the oscillation, and it creates the shake, which, you know, if HARP is being used for tectonic warfare, you've got two beams of the resonant frequency that's of the substrate right there coming in at offset timing, which creates a vibration and an oscillation of the frequency, and it creates that at a depth that is actually very shallow, but it sets off the stresses that are going on below in the tectonic stresses that are at that particular area where the frequencies are being focused upon. Well, humanity, each and every one of us have our own resonant frequency, and our resonant frequencies are always changing because of our thoughts and perceptions, the amount of light and experiences we have, but we are still within a certain range as individuals of frequencies, and each and every thing in the whole universe has a resonant frequency, and those resonant frequencies can possibly be disrupted if they're not protected in their own light. And that's part of why we activate ourselves, is because we expand our light body, and we're not as readily influenced by those incoming frequencies as other people who are not activated are. And so, with that, a lot of persons were saying HARP was being used on humanity prior to the Boston bombings, and I don't disagree with that. That's you know, a very big possibility. Some of you might remember back in the 1990s that there were many radio stations that were experimenting with inducing resonant frequencies of mosquitoes into their radio programming, and as long as you had that stereo dial tuned to their radio stations, then that frequency band, resonant frequency band that mosquitoes live within, it was being broadcast through these radio stations, and it would keep the mosquitoes away from you. You know, as long as that the mosquitoes were within that field, they felt very uncomfortable because of the oscillation of their own personal frequencies. And HARP, when it's used as a mind control situation or emotional control situation, it's exactly that's what's being done, is they're hitting the resonant frequencies that the human species lives within, and not necessarily an individual, but then they're being broadcast through television stations and radio stations and all these microwave cell towers that you see around, and maybe even smart meters. Who knows? It's a possibility. I've got one here where I'm living. There's nothing I can do about it. They put it in, and there's no way to take it out. They're bound and determined to push it upon you. And the only thing that you can do to protect yourself is to activate your chakras, activate your light body, and expand your light. Hold more light quotient. And then retune your thoughts and your emotions so that you're not fearful of all that. Well, along with the possibilities of HARP being used, we can see what the government is doing with the financial system, and their collapsing of the U.S. dollar. They're getting ready to consciously, very much planned, getting ready to take down the economy, and they're hitting that in every possible way they can. Will NESARA be implemented afterwards? I don't know. That's a possibility, but you've got several different types of NESARAs. You've got the farm NESARA that was supposed to be implemented in early 2000. Actually, it was 9/11/2000, and it was supposed to go through the same day, just like it did on 9/11/2001, the same day they had the World Trade Center bombings. It said that NESARA was supposed to be implemented the other day when they had the Boston Marathon bombings. And so, we know that the banksters and the people that are the controllers, the ruling elite, they do not want NESARA to be implemented. But most people don't realize that form of NESARA is only for a few persons, and it's not for the collective of humanity or everybody here in the United States. And then you've got another one which seems to relate to that. I haven't been able to figure out the difference, and that's Saint Germain's NESARA, where it's said that everybody on the planet will be taken care of financially or have their needs taken care of so we can develop spiritually. I hold tight to trying to keep that image into place, although I do not know the validity of what is actually occurring there. But by holding the vision, I hold that, I want it to be true. I set that intent for it to be true. Then we have another NESARA that George Bush created, which is basically a restructuring of the financial system so that we can play the same game that we have with money in a totally different way. Well, these same controllers that created that one, they control the gold and silver markets, and they control the governments of the world, and they control the banks, and they control the military-industrial complex, and they control the educational system, and the medical system, and pharmaceutical, and they control energy and all the various forms of power, whether it be oil or nuclear energy or even our vehicles and the whole thing. They're the same people that have kept us in check for so long now. And anyway, taking this all back to what we were feeling in the days before the Boston bombings and that negativity, lower vibrational energies that many of us were feeling coming into our fields at that point. Now that we've had a couple of days to pass through it and to realize myself, having a friend who is still very 3D, 4D that I'm involved with, who cannot comprehend 5D and fully living from the heart, cannot comprehend pulling out of the system because he's got so much time invested in the system, and who is very scattered like so much of humanity out there right now, going, oh man, it's all coming down, my world's falling apart, and I gotta do something. But they're acting like a giant train wreck. They're just scattered in chaos. And I've got a friend that I'm involved with that is very much just that. And I started to have some issues with this particular individual because he just can't seem to keep up with his obligations and commitments, which influences my life because I allow him to I allow myself to participate in his. And with that, it's almost like a fractal. I felt a lot of almost like old anger issues, and I haven't experienced anger in a long time. Fear much, much longer. And anger or fear is only a part of your geopolitical awakening process. And when I finally realized that, and realized that that's a fractal going on, then I started comprehending what's going on with society as a whole. And I realized that what I'm feeling on the exterior of my field coming in, and a lot of this has actually come into my field and affected me personally to show me what's going on. And now I can see that in the news and that in many of those who I'm subscribed to. I can see the same anger that they're reporting on coming up from humanity all around. And so that it's actually a good thing when you understand what's going on on a geopolitical level, this anger is a fantastically fabulous thing. We who were spiritually awakened, who were activating ourselves and activating Mother Earth and raising the frequencies of the planet, who are consciously doing our work, the volunteers, those of us who know we're here for the end times and changing this. Before, a few years ago, we were with the comprehension that Mother Earth would separate into two totally different worlds, and we would ascend to one, and the old Earth would remain there for all those persons who are not ready to come to New Earth, who are not ready to go to their heart, who are not ready to ascend. And that shift of the consciousness from the brain, out of the duality, the plurality, the thinking, the ego, the negativity, the fear, into the heart is ascension, living out of love, activating your electromagnetic torrid, activating the chakra, which activates the electromagnetic torrid, which activates your Merkaba, which is like a giant gyroscope that you're walking around in, your new energy field from activation. Well, we started realizing that when Venus transit occurred in 2012, we started getting the messages that all of humanity is coming through the ascension process. And so there's not just a select few of us that's coming through. So those of us we're almost like parents right now. And we're watching our child, which is humanity, learn to walk. And there's a process. And there's a process to the geopolitical awakening that takes them into their spiritual awakening. And you have to do the first. You cannot just jump into the spiritual awakening without realizing what the game is of duality that we're here to experience. The geopolitical awakening, that which we came to experience and we want to change into a new way of being. So there's a process of that geopolitical awakening, and that geopolitical awakening begins with a denial, saying this is just all there is and it just all happens and nothing's really nothing's really going on out there. Our governments aren't doing anything to harm us, and the medical industry is there for our benefit, and doctors and lawyers are always there for our best interests, and they don't realize what the game that has been pulled over their eyes, the veil's been pulled over their eyes, so that they do not realize that they've been enslaved by the same system that they're in denial of. They're backing the system and wanting to continue playing that game. And the second phase of awakening is the fear, when you wake up and you go, uh-oh, it's really happening. These guys are really trying to enslave us. They're trying to kill us. They're trying to take everything. They are trying to destroy everything that we've worked for in our whole lives. So fear is number 2. Number 3 is anger. Anger. And this goes back to what many of us were feeling here these past days. Although the anger is not coming from within ourselves, we're picking up on humanity, waking up, getting past that fear mode with these Boston bombings and going, we gotta do something. I'm pissed off. Because they're realizing that all these mass shootings, that the banking system, that these bombings were a false flag planned event. They actually had bomb detectors. They were doing bomb drills at the Boston Marathon just before it happened, just like they were doing earthquake drills in Mexico City when they had the HARP generated 10 kilometer deep earthquake that happened at the exact time that they said they were having a earthquake drill for this magnitude in this particular place on the planet. And then all of a sudden it happens. These things are happening over and over and over. Just like the FEMA drills in New Orleans for a massive hurricane just before Hurricane Katrina. This stuff is happening repetitively. Now, it's being planned. and the technology is there to carry it out, and it is there to create certain situations that is enslaving humanity, that allows the government, just like they say these bombings were a terrorist activity. Well, it is terrorist activity. It's our government, but by the people who are still in denial of what's going on, saying, oh, protect me from these terrorists, the government is creating laws and different ways of taking away your rights and your freedoms. It's just like the all these mass shootings, which are government psyops. We've already reported many times on how mind control is being used with these different persons that are doing the shootings, and how there's relationships to these individuals to greater and much larger pictures that's going down, with persons trying to do expose on the system. The same frequencies can be used to create mind control with these individuals. All these individuals are on psychotropic drugs, which are created by the same Illuminati controllers, and people are starting to wake up to this. And so a lot of people are out of that fear factor right now, and they're coming into the anger, and then they're going to get very vocal and active. And that's what's going to have to happen. We've got to come together as one humanity to make these greater changes that are going to happen on the planet. We have to agree that we want to bring down the system, that we do not want to continue playing this game, and humanity is going to have to wake up and separate from the system. We can't fight the system. We cannot sit there and be an opponent wanting to make changes with guns and weapons and violence, like so many of the geopolitical activists that are hitting their activism end, that geopolitical awakening that occurs before your spiritual awakening. Those of us who are totally spiritually awakened and who are activating realize that you cannot change the system and bring it into New Earth by the same ways that the old system's done, by violence, by the crap. And that goes into OPPT, the One People's Public Trust. Because the One People's Public Trust really gives us the tools we need to separate from the system, to serve the courtesy notices on those persons trying to hold us within the system, and to tell them that the corporate structure is now defunct. There is no more maritime or admiralty law in effect, except for those who continue to play that game and to give it their power. But for those of us who have stepped out of that game, we can use the courtesy notices to file to anybody trying to put us into that game and say, nope, we're not playing anymore. And if you continue to do this, then we'll start creating invoices. If you continue to harass me, then you're agreeing to my game, and we'll start making invoices to send to you for your the energy and the time that you're costing us by perpetuating the game. And so spiritually, as we separate from the activism, geopolitically awakening, and into the spiritual awakening, the OPPT is actually a tool which can break that tie, which actually sets you free, which actually allows you to step out of the game in the system and to do things in a much, much different way. Now, humanity is going to have to wake up to that game and to the system, and to see behind the veil and see the wizard behind the curtain and see what's going on. And they're starting to realize that all this that we're seeing is planned, and that and they're awakening to that fact. And with that, they have passed that stage of fear, and they are becoming angry. And so what many of us are feeling right now, with the world feeling angry as we're raising our frequencies, and we're playing on a different level, but watching those of us who are still not geopolitically awakening, going through their awakening process, passing the denial, passing the fear, getting into that anger stage so that they can remove themselves from the system and help to change the system. That's what we're watching going down right now. And boy, is it amazing. And there's nothing to be fearful of. And yes, the system has got to collapse so that we can build something new. But be aware at what is going on, peoples. There's many of us who are holding the higher energies that are literally shutting down our following of the news and our geopolitical, our activism, because a lot of us are still activists in spreading the news and trying to wake people up so that we can make our changes. But we're holding the higher energies, and a lot of us are backing off right now and just staying with our own field and clearing out, helping to transmute some of these negativities which we're feeling the world doing right now. And it's all part of the process. Now, I've had a couple of friends ask me to do another global meditation focused upon the events that occurred in Boston. And personally, I hold the light and hold the space, but I'm at a level where of participating in the game where I don't feel the need to be an opponent, an opposite polarity, trying to put out fires that the powers that be are instigating. There were many attacks that were leading up to many of those of us who are holding the higher vibrations, who are teaching what we can on the spiritual side. We had many trolls and shills and attacks trying to shut down our blog sites. There were tens of thousands of people that were affected by the viruses that were in the hacks that were going on with WordPress, and many of us were getting attacked on our videos or our Facebook pages and stuff like that. The dark side was out in full force at the same time that we were feeling these lower vibrations. And there's many people that say that they have knowledge that they were doing rituals during that time, and they may well have been. This is, what we're seeing going down is the last death throes of the Illuminati and their control structure. They're knowing it's going out, and they're trying to maintain control any way they can. They're actually fearful of those of us who are holding the higher light and what we might do to them after the system changes. And personally, we have to go back to the understanding of the duality game and why we're here and why they hold the opposite polarity. And we have to be in that state of forgiveness and appreciation that they were holding that dark side. It's not those of us in the light that was holding that dark side. It took other people who volunteered to anchor that darkness and to create the game that we experienced as duality for us to experience our parts in it, for us to experience our ascension that we're going through right now, which is almost an opposite polarity. And right now we're like a yo-yo, and we've just separated into new earth, and we're bringing new earth into old earth into new earth. And so that's what's happening, and we're going to have to be forgiving of these persons. We're going to have to be compassionate. And that goes back to the last of the geopolitical awakenings. First, you've got denial, then you've got fear, then you've got activism, then you've got compassion and serenity. And that allows you to step into your spiritual awakening. And we're seeing all of this going down right in the here and now. And it's such an interesting game to watch being played out. And I've spoken for almost 30 minutes. That's just the whole message was a complete concept, and I did not touch it all. But I'm gonna leave this at a little more than a 30-minute video. Hang in there, guys. Yes, we're seeing the system being manipulated. We're watching as the gold and silver markets collapse, and those persons who are hanging on to the 3D old ways and putting their value into gold and silver, or into things, material things, who have not stepped into their spiritual awakening and realizing that we live in abundance and we can have whatever we need whenever we need it. Those persons who are still hanging on to that old 340 earth are watching as the silver and gold markets are being manipulated, and even there their wealth might be disappearing. And people, just stay in your heart. Just be the love that you are. Activate and empower yourselves. Enlighten yourselves. See things for what it is. Look behind the curtain at the wizard, and if you can't hang with watching all the drama that the wizard's creating as he pulls all the levers and strings, just like the Wizard of Oz did, then back off. Turn it off. Change the channel for a while. Hold the light. And do as much activation of Mother Earth as you can. Focus on the shifts that that you are being called to do to activate or clear the energies for Mother Earth. Sandra Walters is traveling around the country right now, doing what she's been called to do. I've got other friends that are in the Florida area doing their ceremonies all around here, and we're all being called to focus on allowing either the higher vibrations to come into Mother Earth or those lower vibrations to exit. And many of us work in both those fields simultaneously. And if you can't watch what's happening geopolitically without getting emotionally involved or fearful or angry or any of that stuff, just turn it off. Go inside your heart. That's where your true power is. That's where your enlightenment is. That's where your higher states of consciousness is. And focus on yourself. By focusing on ourself, by our own self-realization, we affect the world in a much greater way than doing anything we possibly can by going out there and demonstrating or trying to fight the system that is collapsing, that has an inevitable collapse to it. It's got to come down. And so anyway, lift that veil and see what's behind there if you can handle it, and realize what's going on and why, and realize that this anger that is being felt throughout humanity right now is a very good thing. We are almost like parents that are watching our child want to walk, and that child is pulling itself up and going, "Daddy, Mama, just leave me alone. I want to walk." And we have to back off and not be seen, and let that child build its spirit, build its determination, build its confidence in wanting to walk. And when that child finally walks across the room, it's just, he's free. And that's what we're seeing going down with humanity right now. And so we got to let humanity learn to walk. And so this anger process is a good thing. We're out of the fear stage. And yes, there will still be fear even with the anger stage. And yes, there will still be fear even as they get into their activism stage. It's all part of the process. And then sooner or later we clean up those old emotions and ways of being, because we realize that we're absolutely, totally protected when we get into our spiritual awakenings. And so be thankful. It's happening, and it's happening so quick, and we haven't got to wait, all these years. Some people said it would be hundreds of years before we see this actually unfold. No, it's going down now. And just from the higher perspectives, hold the vision, hold your dream for New Earth. And as far as group meditations go, I had friends asking me to do another group meditation. Right now, I'm not personally feeling it, but I'll support and be a part of any meditations that other people are bringing forth. I'm just not going to be on the call for it until I'm called to do that. Right now, being an opposing force, trying to counteract what's going on is not it. Trying to transmute and allow those lower vibrations and the fear and the anger leave planet so we can bring in more light. That's something that I feel called to do right now. And by the way, we've got a gamma burst that's many hundreds of millions of years old that is just now hit Mother Earth. So we've got even more than the photon belt, the magnetics coming from the center of this galaxy. We've got another gamma ray burst bringing in more light from a long time ago. So it's amazing what all's happening right now. And anyway, at 35 minutes, I'll have to say bye. Bye for now. Love y'all. Have a good one, guys.